Once again, this episode is being brought to you by dieselfuelprints.com. Diesel Fuel Prints has been in the sticker business since 1991, and they've been printing all of my stickers since the early 2000s. Dieselfuelprints.com has easy online ordering and quotes for stickers of any size and shape. Full color printing on the highest quality weatherproof material, and 125 black and white stickers starts at $25. Shipping's always free, and listeners of this show can get 10% off when they use the promo code AWP 2021. So go check out Diesel Fuel Prints for your sticker needs. Hey everybody, welcome back to the Anyway Whatever podcast. I'm your host, Mike Fisher. And as always, when I make mistakes, I always own them right up front. So we were just recording this episode for like 25 minutes and something was broken on my end. So we have to start again. So we're going to be retreading ground we just talked about. Today's guest is Coyote Black. Coyote is a piercer and race car driver, which I'm excited to talk about his racing. And, he was in bands, and we know each other because I did some artwork for his band from about a decade ago. Hi, Coyote. How are you, man? I'm super sorry for
buddy.
the technical stuff.
It's all right, man. Shit happens. And pretty much everything I do breaks all the time. So
I see. We'll get into your racing stuff, but I see your car breaking a lot.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. If you track any of like the live stuff, man, it's like 99% of the time heartache.
That appears to be the case.
Yeah.
It looks hella fun, though. It looks hella fun.
It is.
So, yeah, we know each other from me doing artwork for your old band, Lightning Lord. You said you were in that band like when you were like 20. You were like super young, yeah?
Yeah, I turned 21 in New York City. So, and that was the same year that I moved back and also joined Devil's Cut, which is my Pittsburgh band. So yeah, I was actually, I think it was 19 when I first moved to New York. That's probably when we were first talking. So I was like a teenager.
Dude, totally. How long were you in New York? And were you like in Manhattan proper or?
Yeah. So after I did my apprenticeship in Minneapolis, me and the girl that I was with, split. And I was in Minneapolis since I was 18. So like around, 2008, 2009 or so. No, I was in Minneapolis when the Penguins won the Stanley Cup, which was 2009. I remember that very clearly. So probably 2010 or so is whenever I went to New York City. And I went there with nothing. I went there with actually just my car. I ended up having to drive back and forth from there. And Minneapolis once or twice to get all my shit. Yeah. So, and I was like a Buick Century that was not good to drive that far, man, like at fucking all. But yeah, I think I was there about a year or two. And it was hard and it was shitty. And I lived in Manhattan proper. I lived in Long Island. I lived in Queens. I lived in Brooklyn. I lived everywhere except for the Bronx or Staten Island. And there's not really anything there anyway. So,
yeah. The Wu-Tang Clan's the only thing from Staten Island, right?
I didn't know that.
I'm pretty sure they are. Yeah. I'm pretty sure they are Staten Island.
Yeah, sure.
I could also be wrong.
You're gonna lose a lot of cred if you're wrong.
Oh God, yes. Me and my hip hop cred.
yeah, exactly, man. Doing a lot of hip hop album artwork these days.
I'll do whatever.
No, yeah.
Whatever you got for me.
Anything with a skull.
Yeah, pretty much. And yeah, so we knew each other from that, and we've stayed friends on social media for like the last decade. And I always like seeing your posts. You're always up to interesting stuff. You got like always got a bunch of stuff going on, and just watching you, be involved in the piercing industry, and like seeing you go to the conferences and stuff, and that you're involved at a higher level on in your craft is something that I love that stuff.
Yeah, thanks, man. We talked about it a little bit earlier, but it is important to, once you kind of get to where you're going, to be able to give back and help other people really be able to make a living off certain stuff, and we were talking a little bit about how this is a new industry for the most part, newish, last 50, 60 years max or something like that. And we're breaking a lot of new ground here. And this is definitely a real career for a lot of people now. And we're kind of like, my generation of piercers is only like the second or third gen in the US. So we're still kind of figuring everything out and how this is going to work and what our health and safety standards should be and what jewelry we should be using and material safety and all kinds of stuff, man. It's a lot to be involved with, but the industry's really made a lot of strides in the last 10, 20 years.
Yeah, you were saying that you work out of a tattoo shop called Mantis Tattoo in Pittsburgh, right?
Yeah. So,
and then
that's
is
the piercing side. Yeah.
Are you also Mantis, or do you have a separate entity inside of that shop?
So I work just under Mantis, but the entire piercing side is like all my deal. So I own the whole piercing side of that shop. So for my money, like what I do for a living is I pierce full time. I own the marketing company, the Spectre business cards thing, which we haven't even mentioned any of that. Too, but,
yeah, I forgot totally that we worked together on that too.
Yeah, we did, and that's actually what funded the race car, that entire separate business. It's a design and business card company that I've not had much time for at all lately, but my girlfriend since moved in from Portland. She's also a body piercer, and we're looking at opening hopefully another shop here in the Pittsburgh area somewhere in the next year.
That's awesome. Yeah, I mean it's got to be hard right now with the pandemic stuff to even think about,
Well, we're not that far into it yet, but my thinking is, well, nobody else is signing leases right now. Maybe we can weasel our way into something good.
Yeah, there's that. There is that.
That's the hope.
Are you able to actually do any piercing right now? Is your shop open at all, or?
Yes. Yeah, we are. So we're not doing anything under the mask.
Right. No nose piercing or lip piercing at the moment.
Yeah. Most of the shops that I know that, are not right now. And we're kind of got that on hold. And we were closed for 3 months, which was a pain in the ass, and so yeah, we are. I mean, it's one of those things that we're kind of playing the game like everybody else for the most part. You know what I mean? But
yeah,
just trying to do the right thing.
Yeah. That is what I would expect from everybody. Unfortunately, that's not exactly happening, but right. Everybody doing their best to keep everybody else safe should be the bare minimum. Right.
And that's sort of one of the things that we as an industry have been always kind of good at self-policing, because it's not like this everywhere, but at a lot of places, there's no regulation at all. There's nothing. There's no
piercing regulation,
no licensing, no health inspectors, nothing.
But there is, is there for tattooing?
No.
Wow.
Yeah. Wow. Not here. Yeah.
That's crazy.
All we need is an occupancy permit. So.
That's crazy. When you're dealing with something like bodily fluids, it seems like you would definitely want to have, that. Do you know if barbers have to have barbering license in Pittsburgh? Yeah. See, 'cause it's the same. That seems like it would. So my wife's a hairstylist, and so she has to constantly keep making sure that all of her certification is up to date, because it's one of, like tattooing and piercing, it's one of the few jobs where you actually touch the person. You touch other people. So that's crazy that there's no.
Yeah, it's terrifying. It's like that a lot of places. I mean, sometimes there's citywide ordinances or whatever, but there's nothing where I'm at.
Is that the whole state or just Pittsburgh?
I think Philly, because I'm about half hour, 40 minutes out of Pittsburgh proper. So I don't think the city of Pittsburgh has anything either, but I think Philadelphia does. But it's even in cities that I've worked in that had regulation, typically it's not very good. So that's part of also what the Association of Professional Piercers has kind of done. It's the organization that I worked with for a little while. I was on their membership committee to help people become members, and we look at all that stuff. You know what I mean? So it's sort of one of those self-accountability things within the industry to be like, okay, if you go to somebody who's a member of this shop, they're at least doing this stuff that we're asking them to do,
you know, as a, kind of person who spent their life in the punk scene and metal scene and the DIY kind of kind of world, like I definitely prefer when people are allowed to do their thing with as little interference from Big Brother as possible. But at the same time, like, and so I do like that you guys are kind of doing that on your own, like you guys are self-policing. I think that's encouraging, and probably in the end better than like a state thing. But I don't know. It just seems weird that
it is weird. Yeah, it's very weird. I mean,
for tattooing and for piercing. Yeah, that's crazy.
Yeah, it's super strange. I mean, and that's one of the things the organization will do too, is like they'll look at local stuff, and in a lot of cases we have a legislative committee that'll go in and actually help these guys write the laws whenever they're coming up. You know what I mean?
That's awesome.
Yeah, it's really good. I mean, the organization's, I think it's almost 25 years old. So it's that even in of itself is pretty young, but done a lot of good. There's over 1,000 members, at least now. I haven't looked at the member count in a long time, but in the grand scheme of how many shops there are, even in one state, there's still a long way to go.
Yeah. I mean, that's fascinating.
Terrifying.
But it's fascinating too. It's like, cool. I love knowing things like that. I now have information that I didn't have before. I love it.
Yeah. So next time when you finally decide to do something ever. We were discussing in the part that wasn't recording, that I don't have any tattoos at all. And he was like, Coyote couldn't believe I didn't have any tattoos. Fucking impossible somehow. That's true. But yeah.
Yeah. I do get that a lot from people who are like, how is a dude like you who makes so much art and has been in all these bands and has been involved in these scenes for so long, have no tattoos? And it's like, it just really comes down to, I could never come up with something that I wanted to have on me forever. And also once I decided I was going to consider getting tattoos and have them done by some of my favorite artists, then it became like kind of a scheduling and a money thing. And then, time goes by and I end up not having any tattoos at 51 years old. And now I feel like at 51, since I don't have any, maybe I'm not going to happen. Me and my wife will just stay the last two untattooed people in America
on Earth. Yeah. Hey man, it's fun. You got a good life,
even my wife's father, who's like super conservative, like 82-year-old man, he has a tattoo.
Really?
Yeah. From when he was in the military. Yeah.
Oh yeah. Okay. Well,
he's a good guy. Shout out Art Cagle. He's my main dude.
The dude, man. Got to shout the father-in-law out.
Yeah, he's a good dude. So yeah, we were talking a lot about our love of auto racing when we were like in our little warm up phase, and you started touching on stuff that I wanted to hear about while we were recording, so people could kind of learn a little bit about your racing career, how it started, and where it's gotten to. Because you seem to have progressed like really far, really fast with your driving. How long? I seem to remember that you had a Camaro that you were drag racing, and then it kind of quickly went to track racing, right?
Yeah. So originally, because you could drag race anything,
literally.
They don't give a shit. Like you can bring up
your
whatever
station
you want,
wagon, like, whatever you got.
Yeah, you can bring whatever you want. So it was a Trans Am. I had an orange Trans Am, right. And I did that for a little while. But anybody who's ever been drag racing kind of knows that like you can sit there all day, and if somebody oils the track down, you're gonna sit there all day, and you might get one pass, and if you screw it up, then it's like you go home.
Wasted a whole day.
Right, and I was aware of scca at the time, even too, but there's so much that goes into learning how to get into that initially, which is like what now, a couple of years later, I'm working on the board of directors for our region's scca as an outreach person, because it was so goddamn hard to figure it out. Because there's 1,001 classes. There's a million cars. You don't know what's competitive. You really don't understand any of it. You're told in the beginning, once I got out of drag racing, I sort of decided this is what I wanted to do. So naturally, I'm like, well, I got to build a car. I didn't know anybody else who did this. I've never even seen an actual racetrack in my life before. I hooked up with one of the guys from Steel City who let me know that there was a school at Summit Point in West Virginia. It was like $200.
How far is that from where you're at?
Probably with a trailer, it's like 3 some hours.
Oh, okay. So it's
like
not
that.
Close.
No, it's not off the road. Well, I didn't have a truck. I didn't have a race car, and I'd never pulled a trailer in my life, and I didn't have a trailer. So I found out about this school in like January or something like that. And the school was in March.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So I bought my, it's an Integra. It's an Acura Integra. It was a GSR at the time. And I built the whole car myself. And I'd never built a car before. I mean, my drag cars were just cars that I had that were already done. Like it was just street cars, like I didn't do anything special to them. That was a nightmare. And I did end up getting to school. I got my license. You get a novice permit and you have to run 3 regional races. Then you get your full competition permit and they give you a discount on the home series. So I actually ended up running the entire home series in my class, which is E-Production, which is the fastest of the production classes for anybody keeping track at home. Long story short, I actually ended up winning the championship regionally in this beat up ass car, which like we kind of talked about earlier, has broken literally everything you could possibly. I mean, the fact that we finish any race at any point is a miracle. So I won the championship. They gave me Rookie of the Year in Pittsburgh region and in DC region, and I had enough points for Driver of the Year, but I didn't race any Pittsburgh events, so I didn't get it.
Wow.
Yeah, I had the points for it, but the year after I went to majors, which was the last year we really raced, we broke a lot more shit and ended up making it to runoffs, which is the biggest amateur race in the country. So we went from literally no experience to the biggest race you could race in 2 years.
That's amazing. I as you know, and listeners probably have heard me talk about it a little bit, is I do sim racing with my brother-in-law, and we run all different classes of cars from F1 all the way down to, like 100 horsepower, production cars in our little tournaments that we run in. Like, what's the horsepower on your car? Like what horsepower is the class that you run in?
So the thing about our classing is like, it's not a spec class. So I'm not racing other Integras necessarily. I race against like RX-7s and different Porsches and all kinds of crazy shit. Miatas, which are in every class. Is it
a horsepower rating that puts you in a particular class, or?
Oddly enough, it's not. And there is. So there's a formula that they have, I think, that they go through and say, hey, you're allowed to do X, Y, Z to this car. It'd be a lot easier to say, you make 200 horsepower, you have to weigh this much. Done.
Yeah, that's how I would do it.
That isn't how they do it. You have a spec line that you're allowed to do certain shit to your car, basically. So for us to start winning nationally, which we've taken second place at national events like the Hoosier Super Tour, but for us to really start winning, we should be making anywhere from 200 to 220. Right now we're making 174 because the people who built my engine fucked it up. And then we just blew it up. So the last race I crossed the finish line with a blown transmission, a blown engine.
Wow.
They threw a double yellow flag on the last lap where I would have gotten past probably. So it was like struggle. Whoever hit the wall in that race, thank you. It wasn't us for once.
Yeah. I remember you were, you posted something and I was like, about your racing, like during one of your weekends. And I was like chatting with you about it. And you're like, I know dudes, they got cars for sale. And I was like, no, like,
oh yeah. Well,
I mean, I would love to, but I don't know how.
Your best bet, I think you're not far from Laguna Seca probably, right?
I grew up not too far from Laguna Seca, and my dad raced SCCA races. And so I spent some time as a little kid at Laguna Seca. as a sim racer, I loathe that track, but it's super fun, but it's hard. It's very hard. I'm actually really close to Button Willow.
Oh yeah, okay.
Not really close, but it's like
That'd be
probably an hour and a half drive from here.
Your best bet is to rent a car. Like anybody who wants to get into it, if you want to go get your license, because I think Skip Barber even might run out there.
That sounds familiar. The Skip Barber driving schools, is that what?
Yeah, you can get your racing license straight from them. They're actually one of the people that offered me a professional seat in one of their Hondas for next year. So as long as we can get that figured out. So if any sponsors are listening, please tell me because we need to fund that car. The difference between going, and I have like no problem even talking numbers about it. The difference between going from like an amateur race, like the runoffs, which were a week-long event, the top amateur race in the country, the cost for us to do that was probably a few $1,000s. And we weren't even like, there are guys that are changing tires every session there. We weren't doing that. We were staying in a tent and we were taking those dudes' old tires. Like that's like just for us to do is a couple $1,000. To do a single professional race in like, we're talking just like a Honda Civic, not INSA or anything like that. It's something around like $30,000 or $40,000 a weekend.
Wow.
A weekend.
Jesus.
Yeah. So that money doesn't come from me. Obviously it has to come from someone. And then there's TV number, the advertising write-off of it all ends up probably making sense for somebody down the line, but that's why there's so many stickers on the side of that shit.
Yeah. One of my favorite things about like Gran Turismo Sport is doing liveries. I spend hours. My brother-in-law, he always shout out to Billy. He's been on the show a couple times. But it drives him crazy. Like anytime we're going to run a car, like a car that we haven't run before, like he has to wait for me to at least put some kind of change to the livery. Like I cannot run a stock livery. Like I at least have to like make it all flat black or like something. And he's like, God, you're such a lame-o, dude. Just drive.
People on iRacing, man, that's like a whole market. Like there's like they pay people to make liveries for their iRacing stuff.
Oh, I bet.
Like, yeah, one of our sponsors is Hawk Performance, like the brakes, our brake sponsor, and they had one ready to go. So I just plugged that in, and that's my Hawk Performance Miata. I did and you know what? I sim race like here and there, and you would think it's like pretty close to real driving. So I always think like, I'm going to do really good. And they did a cyber like super tour this year. And the announced, because they put me on the cover of the sports car magazine.
Oh, wow.
Like SCCA put me on the cover of their thing because like how crazy the whole story was. And so the announcers are like talking about me on like the broadcast or whatever. And it like shows me in like second to last place. Like,
that's amazing.
I'm here and I'm just like sliding off the track and shit. I was like, look like a complete joke. Like I've never done it in my life.
Yeah, that is definitely one of those weird things where, like we were trying to race LaFerraris, and the car in Gran Turismo, it's undrivable. Like it's literally undrivable. Yeah. It's like trying to drive on ice. And then we were watching a YouTube video of a guy driving and reviewing that car. And he was just like perfect grip. It's like the best car I've ever driven. I'm like, oh, whoever was in charge of quality control for the Ferraris in Gran Turismo missed the boat.
Have you you've driven a lot because you were a valet for a little while, right?
No, I was a repo man.
Oh.
I've driven a lot. I have driven every class of car in the world, and I drove a tow truck 300 miles a night every night for years. So yeah,
I remember it only because I had driven the new Acura NSX, and we were talking about the old one because you must, I guess, repoed one.
Yeah, we repoed one.
I thought you were a valet. That's even funnier, actually.
Yeah, no, me and my brother-in-law actually repossessed that car, and then we actually each kept it for like a week and drove it before it got sent to the auction. Man, that car was fun. No.
Okay, good.
I mean, it did happen sometimes.
Yeah, I mean, I would have too. I get it, but every year when we go to Vegas for APP, the conference, the Piercing conference, it's in fucking Vegas. So I always rent some scandalous shit when I'm down. That's when I got the NSX, and I drove the new Ferrari 488, which is what the point I was getting at with like, oh, it's the best fucking car I've ever driven or whatever. Dude, I picked my friend up to take him to the rental place in that car and like turn the corner. He's like, you almost just lost that. Like it's not. It's very easy to get loose in that car. I mean, I hit probably 150 miles an hour in the desert in that car. And that is the only time it actually felt stable because it has DRS.
Oh, wow.
And I didn't realize it had DRS until I got over like 100 some miles an hour and the light came on that said DRS. And I was like, oh man. And the wing like changes and like the whole car, like it's super crazy, like how it works. Yeah.
Very cool.
Oh my God. I'm a Formula One driver.
Dude, totally. Totally. Yeah, Formula One car, that is also, if you take all the traction control off of a Formula One car, it's pretty much undrivable.
Oh, yeah, I'm sure. Well, I don't even know what kind of systems they have in those cars, but it's got, I mean, considering the car only weighs like 1,000 pounds, it is 1,000 horsepower, you know, like I have no idea what it takes to actually get it. I have a friend who races a Formula Mazda, and he'll be embarrassed that I'm mentioning this probably, but his last race, I mean, it was kind of damp out, but he turned the corner and his wheel, it wasn't perfectly straight, but it was getting close, and he hit the gas and the whole car just like completely around in 1 second. Like it was like,
yes,
no traction at all.
That happens. It's ugly.
Yeah.
It's
gotta
ugly.
get your wheel straight, man. Apparently that's the, you know.
Yeah. So you do iRacing and so you're able to drive in your class in iRacing. So do you find that it's like kind of, is it like,
so,
does it feel like what driving your real car is like?
So my car, I'll race the Miata, because it's close to like horsepower proximity as like I'm going to get in iRacing, I think. And I can still go on like the tracks and stuff. So I'll usually race spec Miata with like other the same cars. Your
Acura is front wheel drive though?
Yes.
And so Mazda is a rear wheel drive.
Right. So, but my daily car is a Maserati.
Oh, right.
So, which is rear wheel. So I have, and I instruct in both kinds of cars. So I'm like reasonably familiar with both, but there's something wrong with every single racing game and simulator that I play with like the tire traction, because in real life, like at Watkins Glen, which is one of my favorite tracks, I can take a lot of those corners completely flat in my car and the car won't even twitch, but you could never dream of doing that in this without spinning it. You know what I mean? So it's kind of hard. Like if you go to a track for the first time, you've only been on it on iRacing, it seems like you're a lot more timid than you need to be, because in real life, like my car will turn in at over 100 miles an hour, no problem. And that just doesn't happen there. You know what I mean? So it's kind of one of those things. It's like, it's close. You can still get the line down really good, but it's definitely not the same. And then you're also not like afraid.
Yeah, right. You're not gonna die when you're in the sim.
Yeah, exactly. Or you're not gonna destroy your entire car, like,
right. You know? Because that's the thing too. Like you wreck that car, that's your car.
and we have. I mean, I've put that car over a tire barrier at Summit Point, completely like shunted over the top, like into the woods.
Wow.
I hit the wall at pit race going 80 miles an hour and crushed the whole side of it in. Like, we've wrecked this car considerable now, actually. Like more than we've blown 2 tires out of Watkins Glen at over 100 miles an hour. It's a miracle that if you look at the car, it's not straight. I mean,
well, yeah, I can't imagine it would be hitting a wall at 80. Gotta have that unibody's gotta have been tweaked.
Yeah, that car, it's still honestly, when we put a new power plant in it, I'm betting that it's one of the fastest cars in the Northeast, though, in our class for sure. I mean, we're already taking second and racing really well at a lot of these events. We should be a decent mid-pack car at runoffs, I would think, at least with a good heart in it.
So are you planning on taking that spot in that Honda if you can?
So I had two. The goal was to go like from complete amateur to I just want to do one pro race. I would do more, but just one is
just
fine,
check it off the list.
Yeah, well, I wanted to show you could do it. Like if you're just a fan of something, like sort of like how we were both fans before I did this, and I was like, yeah, I just want to see what this really takes to go and do it. To go from just being a fan, playing games, doing whatever, to like, all right, let's go really do this. How far can you get without being super rich or having a bunch of support around you? I have two, Joe Geisler and Mike Sayers are the two guys on my racing team. And us three dudes have done everything together. The first year it was all me. The second year they came in and helped me. And since then, the car has been much better. But that's all the support you get. I didn't have family or friends or anything before that were into it. So can you do it? Yes, you absolutely can go and do it. But here's what it takes, So I was offered the seat in the Honda and TC at the SRO World Challenge. Used to be Pirelli World Challenge.
And that's professional.
That's professional. Yeah, that'd be a pro race. And
how modified is that car?
They're actually, that series is interesting because you buy the car turnkey ready to race from Honda now. And believe it or not, the car I think is only around like $50,000 or something like that.
What is it, a Civic?
It's a Civic, yeah. So there's it's like a full race prep Civic that's meant for like touring car. So it has all the modifications that you can already do to it done. Like you just take it and go and tune the suspension and you're in basically. So I don't think as of now you can even build your own car for that series anymore.
Oh wow.
Yeah, I think they want you to only have them turnkey ready from the manufacturer, which whatever, in the grand scheme of how much a race weekend costs, the cost of the car really isn't that bad. You know what I mean?
Yeah, no, that's kind of crazy.
Yeah,
that's cool. I'm going to have to look that up. What is the class?
It's touring car. It's TC. There's touring car class in SCCA also, which is it's like production basically. I mean, it isn't like super hopped up or anything like that. Like crazy. It's not making like 800 horsepower or anything like that.
How many horsepower is that Honda making?
Probably 2 or 3, like probably close to 3, I would guess, something like that.
Is it like all like stripped in the inside, like the cockpit's all gutted? It's not a stock Civic interior.
No. It's complete. It comes roll caged and everything.
That's amazing.
Yeah, it's completely gutted out. It's really nice because they, of course, brought them the runoffs for all of us to look at and fuck around with whenever they're because they were like, oh yeah, by the way, these are like for sale, and I'm like, oh cool. And I've raced with those cars at the same time, like a multi-class, like they've been out there with us, and it's actually probably just a little bit faster than my car is. I mean, it wasn't anything that I was like, I'll never be able to handle that, you know what I mean? It was like, I think we're actually faster than some of these guys.
Well, the driver counts for something for sure.
they have some good drivers for that team too. I was offered a seat in a Porsche too.
I remember that. I remember that you were offered a seat in a Porsche, and I was like, "Damn, dude."
Yeah,
that car was sick. That car looked sick.
Yeah, that exact car actually is in a ball now. That car doesn't even exist anymore because it got destroyed.
Oh, wow.
I can't even remember what track it was, but the owner of that team actually totaled that car completely. That offer probably still stands, but that's even more money. And with that team, you could go to like IMSA if you wanted to. It's just more like who's paying for it kind of sort of deal, But it's definitely something that I want to do. You just got to pull the right strings. And if somebody sponsors you, you got to try to make them their money back and at least try to make it make sense for them. You're not just trying to rip somebody off and be like, "Yay, I get to race." Like you really got to try to work through like these people that are going to give you this chance, So that's the goal right now as we sit. Is hopefully this year I'm going to try to do the Watkins Glen race with the Skip Barber Honda team if it ends up shaking down. But there's a lot to go there still,
Yeah, just is it like pandemic related constrictions, or is it just a matter of is all that stuff going to run anyway?
It didn't. Well, it got pretty screwed up this year. I mean, the Northeast tracks,
because nobody knew what was going on. It was like new territory for the entire country,
Right. And it's hard to get somebody to to sponsor a car and be like, yeah, here, man, you'll make your money back. And then it doesn't air, then what, or especially on like, if I were to do something like an IMSA race, those are endurance races. It's me and like, let's say 2 other drivers, we all pay the same amount. If the first driver goes out and totals the car, I still pay. We're all paying to be there. You know what I mean? Like it's all one thing. So yeah, there's a lot of logistics that go into that, which by comparison really make amateur racing seem amateur. Much more affordable. You can go and do a regional series, and even you could buy a race ready car for $2,000-$3,000 and go race a regional series and just have fun. For just the cost of the entry fees after that, which is a couple $100, but then you start wanting to win.
Yeah, that's the problem, right? I spent like $1,000 on my sim rig, and like I'm like, oh, that was expensive. But I can't like crash it into a wall and have to replace it.
Right? Yeah, at least like you're gonna have that, that's the thing.
I don't have to buy tires for it or brakes.
And even going from like the regional series, which is just like sort of local, to the majors tour, and seeing some of the shit the guys are bringing out, getting ready for runoffs, it's like they'd put $1,000 tire sit on literally every single session and just get rid of them.
That's crazy.
It's just, in a lot of cases, you just can't fuck with that.
Right. Yeah. Like a lot of things in life, money will, it can't buy you happiness, but it can definitely buy you opportunity to succeed to the level of being happy.
and that's just one of the things, like, yes, it's class racing, but if you've got the money and the time to repair and build things to the absolute limit of the class, you can build a hand grenade that blows up every weekend as long as it wins.
Sure.
Who cares? You can afford to fix it. It's not that big of a deal. You know what I mean? So
yeah,
it starts getting a little weird up top.
Yeah, dude. Welcome to life.
Yeah, exactly. I mean,
welcome,
it's like anything.
Especially with any sport, like, growing up playing hockey, like the rich kids got to go to, hockey camp every summer in Canada or whatever. And,
get the better training, whatever, skate,
sure.
New shit. Speaking of hockey, I had I was the captain of the Pittsburgh Creeps.
Yeah. Coyote was the first Creeps franchise. It's been brought up on this show before that I had a hockey team out here in California called the Creeps. And it was like, the logo was really cool, and people, like, we ended up selling a bunch of like merch with that logo on it, like jerseys and shirts and sweatshirts. And Coyote was like, "Oh, I'm starting a new team. Can I just be the Pittsburgh Creeps?" And I was like, "Absolutely." So I sent him the files, and he started his own version of the franchise of the Creeps out in Pittsburgh. You didn't play that long because you hurt yourself, yeah?
I played here and there when I was in Minneapolis, which is like the easiest thing to do ever because you just go outside, Here I got back into it. I got in pretty good shape again. And I broke my leg on the ice. I like caught an edge and it twisted my ankle around just the right way to break my leg right above my skate boot.
Oh.
Yeah. And then they like carted me to the locker room and just like fucking left me there. and then they played the rest of the game and came back. They're like, "Holy shit, dude, are you still here?" I was like, "Where the fuck am I gonna go?"
my leg is twisted off at the shin.
Yeah,
jackass.
No, dude, I gotta go to the fucking hospital. My goalie took me to the hospital. Goalies are good dudes.
Yeah, we are.
Yeah, you are. I know. Yeah, that team was fun, man. And actually, that logo is like the coolest jersey logo I've ever had. Actually, I mean, those jerseys came out good, like embroidered, like real nice.
Yeah. I was always really happy. The California version is still going. My friend Dan Snow, who has been on this show a couple times and is going to be on again here pretty soon. He still runs Creeps in Burbank, California.
Oh, fuck yeah. You know what's funny about that is Creep Show was filmed here.
I'm
almost positive. That's the George Romero type
Yeah.
deal, right?
Yeah.
So yeah, I live in Monroeville. I'm outside of the city in Monroeville. So like where they filmed, what, Day of the Dead at the mall?
Oh yeah, right.
Day of the Dead? Or Dawn of the Dead at the
Dawn of
mall?
the Dead. Yeah.
Yeah, Dawn of the Dead. That mall is like 5 minutes from me. We were like just there like today doing shit and go to Target.
That's awesome.
Yeah, night, like all that stuff, that's all Pittsburgh based stuff here, which is kind of cool. That was like the other cool part of it. I was like, oh yeah, we gotta
yeah, because
the
logo was like the Creep Show movie poster, like kind of Grim Reaper, but with the hockey stick. I'll try to post a picture of it.
Yeah, that's real sick.
Around
that was awesome.
Yeah, it was fun. It was fun. I think I've officially retired from hockey now, though. I tore my meniscus last year, and it didn't heal as fast as I wanted. And then with all the pandemic stuff, like I just don't feel like it's super responsible to be hanging out in locker
the dirtiest
rooms
possible locker room you could find. Yeah.
Yes, and it's like everybody's breathing on each other.
Yeah,
I mean, it's like
a lot.
Anyway, I mean, all that aside, like, I still have a little bit of pain left in my knee, even a year later. And, I'm enjoying spending my day off because I always give myself one day off a week if I can from work. Cause anybody who listens to this show knows that I just work constantly working on stuff.
I know you do. Yeah.
And so yeah, I take Saturdays off and I sim race with Billy, and this is kind of a new thing for us during this pandemic. We started. I watched. It was one of those things where I was like, I feel like I need something new to pay attention to in my life because I don't follow hockey the way I used to, with all the stats and all that stuff. And so I looked into like, MSL soccer, Major League Soccer, and there's 2 teams in LA. And I tried with that and I was like, ugh, it's soccer. It's like the most boring thing ever. And I happened upon the Netflix series, Drive to Survive.
Yeah.
And it's just about Formula One racing. And it was such a well-made show, and that they really did a good job of making the drivers extremely interesting. Like you become engaged with who the drivers are as people, and not just as, their car, their team or whatever. And they all have different personalities. And it's like that show, I was like, oh my God, this is amazing. And I had already been playing Gran Turismo Sport for, a year or two before I found that. And then, I was like, I called my brother and I was like, dude, you gotta watch this show, this Drive to Survive show. It's super cool. And then him and my sister started watching it, and he's like, you know what? We should get into sim racing. We should do this. And I was like, all right, so like over the summer, right around my birthday, I was like, okay, we're going to do it. So like we invested in, steering wheels and seat setups, and he does woodworking. So he custom built himself like this cockpit. He's like at almost the exact seating position as a real F1 car. It's insane. It is an insane rig.
That's some next level shit. That documentary though, like that's one of the best shot things like I've ever seen. Yeah. It's like I watched that and was like, all I want in my whole life is to be in something like that. Like that is so fucking cool. Like I think I've forced that on like 3 or 4 different people, and like everybody loves it. Like it's not, and you know what? It's kind of cool because the United States has never really been that big here.
Yeah.
And it was after
it's all IndyCar and NASCAR here,
which comparatively suck. Like it's not even I can't even watch like the other, it's like not even nearly as cool to me.
Although I will say that I was jaw on the floor surprised when somebody told me that they run NASCARs on touring car tracks now, a couple races a season. And I didn't even believe it. I had to go watch it. And I was like, that car's not built to do that. Yeah, and so it was kind of goofy, but
they do it on a track that I raced at. They did it at Watkins Glen. It's like one of the bigger races like every year. And it's a little bit different. Like our setup is a little tiny bit longer and a little bit more technical than the one that they do, but naturally.
Those cars are made to go in a left-hand circle.
Right. Yeah.
At 250 miles an hour, or however fast. I don't know how fast they go anymore. I haven't watched a NASCAR race in 40 years.
I don't know how fast Watkins Glen is the fastest track for us, for sure. I mean, you're wide open like a lot of that track there. So I'm sure that they're fucking scooting, I have no doubt about that. But I mean, no matter what, it's still the first, like, turn one and the S's are the same that they run on. So it's definitely having done it and seeing those guys do it, especially in a pack that tight, like with that much power, it's pretty impressive. I'll give them that.
I could find myself watching NASCAR races that are on touring car tracks, but I'm not watching oval. I'm not watching oval racing. Yeah, I'm not watching oval racing. I grew up on drag racing. I grew up on it. My dad, like I said, he raced SCCA stuff when I was a kid, but he was a drag racer before that. He's like an old school car guy. So he took me to when I was growing up, there was a drag strip in Northern California, a Fremont drag strip. I think it was called Baylands or something. But we used to go to the drag races all the time when I was a little kid. And when I was growing up, like the posters on the room of my wall were, drag racers, Big Daddy Don Garlitz and, Don Perdome and those guys. And so that was the only kind of car racing I ever paid attention to. And then when I was in the games industry, we did 1 year's worth of the NHRA drag racing for the PS2. And so I got really, really deep back into it, and I got my daughter into it, and she still goes every year. She still goes because we get it twice in California. We get the season opener, and we get the season finale. We get the Winter Nationals, and we get the we get both races. And so her birthday's at the end of the season, and so for a long time, we would always go for her birthday, but this last year I didn't go, and her and her boyfriend went, and they're like, she's super into drag racing.
It's awesome to watch for sure, man. I mean,
it's a live event. Like, you can't understand what's happening, the magnitude of what's happening if you like watch it on TV, or if you have to sit there and watch a car go from 0 to 315 miles an hour in 3.5 seconds. To really and hear it happening, to really appreciate it doesn't seem like it's a real thing that could happen. When you're watching, you're like, how that defies every single thing I know about the physics of the universe. You know what I mean? It's like it's insane. And so I didn't, that was the only kind of car racing that I ever was into. I never really watched any open wheel racing. And so this was completely new to me, and I'm like all the way into it. Yeah, all the way into it now. Especially
the first time you get to see that in person, you're gonna be that's the rest of your life right there.
Like, I'm super excited.
And if they do have it at Circuit of the Americas, the cool thing: don't buy the seat, get the general admission, because you can walk almost like up to the fucking gate, like you're. Like I could, which is actually kind of scary. I could have just picked a rock up and just like boom, like
threw it on.
There's like nothing stopping me from doing that. You know what I mean? Like it was like right there, and the facilities there are really cool too. But I mean, if they have it in Miami, that'd probably be pretty ridiculous too. I could see like a vaporwave themed like Formula One race in Miami.
I'm hoping for. I am hoping that it would be in Austin at Circuit of Americas, just because I have so many friends in Austin that it makes sense to make a vacation to Austin to see all my friends and to also go to the races. And I had heard that the F1 had started asking the teams and drivers if they were going to add something to the United States, like where they would want it. And there was a lot of talk about Vegas. So it'd be kind of cool if there was an F1 Vegas Grand Prix. Because that's a 4-hour drive for me.
Oh, that's right. You're like there.
Yeah, you couldn't keep me from going to that.
It's a 4-hour flight for me, so it's really no different. Like and usually the flights there are like stupid cheap because it's fucking Vegas and they want you to go there. So we go every year anyway. Like it doesn't matter, and it depends. And I think the U.S. is usually like in October or something like that. I think the USGP, I think it's like late October or something like that. So I don't know. There is I think there is a track in Vegas, but I have no idea what the deal is.
Well, they have a drag strip, and then I think they might have a NASCAR oval. I don't know. Yeah. I don't know that there's a GP circuit. But I mean, they could build a street race. They could build a street race out of Vegas, no problem.
That'd be pretty sick, man. Formula One cars down the strip,
dude, down that straight.
Yeah,
DRS zone down the middle of.
Well,
Flamingo. I've done it. Dude. Speaking of Vegas and tracks and fast cars, have you ever gone out to that place that's just south of Vegas, where you can rent any supercar you can think of, and there's like a closed course? I want to do that so bad.
For you, absolutely do it. So for me, I'm on a racetrack in the summer, like once a week or once every 2 weeks, because I'm either instructing with track night through scca, or I'm doing HPD, or I'm doing a test day, or I'm actually racing. So like, I'm always at a racetrack, and I always get to be in a lot of these cars anyway. And usually if I have a student, I'll be like, hey, why don't you let me take you out for one or two of this, and I'll show you what's up. And then so I get to drive it on a racetrack anyway. So that, like, yeah, it would probably be cool. I had a friend who did it. It was a friend who drives a Formula Mazda 2. And you're with like an instructor guy, and the instructor guy's like, okay, brake, and hit him hard. And I mean, he snapped it because he's a race driver. And the dude was like, okay, not that hard. Like, calm down. So the reason I don't do that is because I just rent the cars from royalty, and then the world is my racetrack, and you've got the intent, which is not the right way to do this. But I mean,
I don't know. I don't know how I feel about that. If you go
out into the desert, like I usually rent them. Like I had 4 or 5 friends. It was like a McLaren, Ferrari, one of the new Porsche GT cars, like all kinds of crazy shit. And like, you're miles away from anything that matters. You know what I mean? And
yeah.
So I won't get too far into detail of that in case for some reason this gets shown in court somehow. But I have just as much fun doing that as I've ever had on a racetrack.
Yeah, so. I one day I'm going to go out there, and I'm gonna drive a McLaren. Like if I won the lottery, that is probably the only fancy car I would buy is a McLaren.
See, you're just a McLaren fanboy now.
Well, I always have been, as far as their supercars are concerned. Like I collect diecast cars. People are probably tired of me talking about it on this show, but I collect diecast cars, and I am primarily a muscle car guy, just all of my life. But I've always loved the McLarens. Just the design of the McLarens is so cool. And when they were doing the center cockpit stuff, like 10, 20 years ago, that was like, that's amazing. Like a fighter jet, man.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, I am super into McLaren, and that's the team that I follow in F1. But unfortunately for me, the driver that is my favorite driver, Danny Ricciardo, is in Renault the last 2 seasons, but he's going to be in a McLaren car next year, and they'll have Lando Norris and Danny Ricciardo in McLaren cars, and I don't have to root for anybody else. I could get it all done in one place.
Yeah. Yeah. And those 2 drivers are like, that team's not going to get anything done because those 2 guys just fuck around. Like,
I know, right? They're hilarious. Lando's hilarious. I follow him on social media and stuff, and I follow the McLaren YouTube channel and stuff, and they always have him on there, and they're like trying to get him to read scripts and stuff.
Yeah.
And he's like, I can't do any of that. He just gets in the car and drives. They'd always show like all these outtakes of him like trying to get the lines, and he's finally just like, we'll do a voiceover. Just let me drive this damn car. One day I'm going to go out to that place in Vegas, and I'm going to drive like a 720 or something, and just like get it out of my system.
I mean, comparatively, it's less than the monthly payment would be, and I mean, you don't have to do anything.
$300,000 car, yeah, I would.
Yeah, I think at the 720, I think it's less than. I think it's like around $600-700 or something like that for 4 hours, like uninterrupted.
Oh, wow.
Which you can get them for up to 24 hours. Thank you. Got a beard.
Is that a rental, or is that that track?
Yeah, it's a straight up rental.
Oh, okay.
There's a service that'll do it there. And well, the funny thing is like your car insurance, if you have full coverage, it covers the entire thing. So like I went to State Farm and like just made sure and was like, listen to me. If I total this Lamborghini Huracan, I am covered. They're like 100%. I was like, okay, tight. And like, that was it. Like, cause there's never been a time where we rented those cars where we haven't wrecked them through no fault of our own. Almost every time somebody will pull out in front of you or like some dumb shit happens. It happens almost every time.
Yeah. Speaking of going back a little bit to us talking about how sim cars are not always super similar, or I hope they are not super similar to real life cars. that Lambo Huracan, like it is one of the least fun cars to drive in Gran Turismo. And it in a straight line, it's crazy fast, but that car, is it like that in real life? Does it handle like crap? Because it just looks... That's
the favorite car I've ever driven.
Really? So it handles better than it does in the game then?
Yeah. I mean, granted, it's a lot it's like street driving and racing driving. Even if you're driving like a dick on the street, it's completely different.
Of course, yeah.
So like, and that's one of the things even when I have students, I have to kind of beat into them is a lot of times like on the brakes, because a lot of people are used to kind of easing into brakes, but in race driving, you hit them as hard as your tires will violently let you, and then ease off of it. And if you do that on the road, it's not fun to drive that way because you're just pulling everything forward immediately, and you don't have a harness and you don't have all this shit. So you're kind of like every time if you want to turn in going that speed, your chair's not keeping like not everything's keeping you in. So you're just slamming yourself against everything. Like, so it's not really as fun in that regard because it's not really a race car. It's just a really fast, capable street car. So a lot of the time I'm not actually pushing these things like absolutely as fast as they can go or anything, but the Huracan was definitely my favorite car I drove. Number one, because everybody notices you in it.
It is a beautiful car. I think of all the Lambos, that's probably my design wise. I think that's probably my favorite car. That car is absolutely beautiful.
It's beautiful, man. If I could go and buy anything, it'd probably be one of those. And it was savagely quick. I mean, the Ferrari had something like 700 some horsepower, and that one only had I think, like 550 or something like that. But
it's a V12. The Huracan.
It's a V10.
Okay.
Yeah, the Aventador is the V12, which I haven't gotten into one of those yet, but I also assume it's just goddamn ridiculous because of what it is. But the one that I rented had a racing exhaust on it. It was the loudest fucking thing in the entire world. Like it was a ton of fun, man. That out of any of them that I've driven, that one by far.
One of the weird Lamborghini factoids that I was never aware of until recently is all of those cars are named after fighting bulls. From Spain. So like the Huracan was a bull in Spanish bullfighting and Aventador and all that. And I thought that was actually pretty cool. I do not like bullfighting. I think it's horrible and completely senseless and useless. I mean, granted, it's part of their culture. And so it's not for me to get to decide that for them, but it just seems
the naming system
silly.
Is definitely pretty cool with them. Maserati actually, who hasn't done, which let me just like as somebody who owns one of those cars, they're total pieces of shit.
I had a boss who had one when I was like first getting into the repo industry, and it was a piece of shit. Like the interior I was like, this isn't like no better than my 1980 VW, Rabbit. Yeah, it was like cheap plastic.
Yeah,
and it was always, it was never running. It was that car never ran right.
I've already had to take half that car apart and put it back together. The only reason I like it is because it does look nice.
Yeah, it's a beautiful car. Which one do you have?
I have a Gran Turismo.
Oh, okay.
Which stayed the same for like 15 years, never changed. But it sounds really, really good. It has the Ferrari powertrain in it, which is awesome. And it looks good. Other than that, not good at all. But the car that I'm most excited to drive right now is actually the new MC20 that they just put out. And they look like they did a really good job on that car. And I think it's supposed to be the return to racing. I think they're going to get back into GT racing.
Oh, wow. Did you have a Porsche for a while? Did you have like a Porsche SUV?
I still do.
Okay.
So yeah, I have a Cayenne.
That thing sounds gnarly on your videos, man.
Well, everything that we like, any car that I buy, we cut the exhaust off it. So we did that to the Maserati. We cut all like the, everything except the mufflers basically on the end. And we did the same thing to the Porsche. But I actually bought that because I got rid of my truck, just to tow with, because even base, like that car, I think was like 12 grand or something like that. And it tows 7,000 pounds.
Oh, so that's what you tow your race car with?
Yep. Yeah, that's
Sick.
the tow mule, actually. Yeah,
that's awesome. What a great tow car.
Yeah, a lot of people do that, actually, which is even more cool when you have a Porsche race car, I guess. But
how much horsepower does that Cayman make?
It's
a Cayenne. Yeah.
Yeah. Like right around 300.
That's not bad.
And mine's like the V6, like absolute base model. Like it's not even the V8. They start the really fast versions of that car are like 0 to 60 like 4 seconds or something like that. They're stupid quick. Like it's not even right.
That is a thing that has happened in the last decade with cars, is that the 0 to 60 time on something that anybody can afford has gotten stupid. Like you can go buy a 3-year-old Hellcat Challenger that goes 0 to 60 in 3.5 seconds for like 30 grand.
Yeah. Oh, dude.
Madness.
And because of that, I lose to everything on the road. Like if I catch something at a red light, I got beat. I was in the Maserati. I got beat by like a V6 Honda Accord. And then in the same day, I got beat by like a fucking lifted pickup truck.
That's hilarious.
Oh yeah. I just went home. I was like, this is... Yeah. And I mean, like that car is, I mean, it's heavy, but it's a 400 horsepower car. Like it's not slow, but I get crushed by everything. Like the only like out of the box new car that I've driven that isn't like a supercar, that's still a sports car. I rented the new Supra.
Mm-hmm. I think it's an ugly car, but they're very fast.
it's very, it's prettier in person.
I looked at one on the showroom. Like my wife has a Toyota, and we had her car over there to get something done to it. And they had one on the showroom floor, and I was looking at it, and I was like, yeah, for the same money, I'm buying a Hellcat. You know what I mean? Or I'm gonna buy the Lexus Track Edition. Although the Track Edition is a little bit more expensive. But I love that. I love that Lexus Track Edition.
You're definitely paying some of like the fanboy tax on those because of what they are, but that car was properly quick, man. I mean, I was really impressed with how much power that thing actually put down. It's not even making crazy. I don't think it's even 400 horsepower in that car, but it felt so much faster than that. And then there's a couple dudes drag racing's really big around here where I'm at too, because there's a drag strip right near here. So we get a lot of hooked up shit. And PRL, which is one of the biggest tuning shops for Civics and like GTRs and stuff. They have like a 3,000 horsepower drag GTR. They make parts for all over the world. They're right up the street too. They're like maybe 15 minutes from here. So we get all kinds of crazy shit around here. And then there was a tuned out Supra here recently that I couldn't even comprehend how quick that. I think it was making 800 horsepower or something stupid like that on the street. Like, Jesus. Yeah. And 300 felt almost unsafe. I mean, it was like, it would break the tires loose. Like, no problem. That thing, I would not mind actually having one of those that wouldn't stuck.
Yeah, right. Oh, all right, man. I think I'm gonna let you go, get back to your life. And I appreciate you coming on, man. It was like super cool to sit and chat with you about your racing stuff. I'm supremely interested in all that stuff, and it was cool to hear some of the details about how you built that little part of your life, and that's amazing, man. Congratulations. And I hope that thing works out for you with that Honda team, because that would be super cool.
We'll find out. And I'm going to get you out there. One of these days we'll get on a sim race at some point too.
Oh yeah. Yeah. Well, I'm PS5 and you're Xbox. So,
PC for iRacing.
Oh, okay. Yeah. I don't have a PC set up. So
we'll
figure something out. All right, man. Thanks for coming on, and I'll talk to you again soon.